Welcome, new and returning Aries to Zodiac Talks Tarot, the corner of the internet where we read the sky like a seasoned historian reads a battlefield map and, yes, occasionally remind you not to charge before the trumpet sounds. I say this as someone who has spent years studying astrology, psychology, and the quieter mechanics of human decision-making, and who knows that when a ram hears go, the debate is already over. Between September 18 and 2025, the air carries that pressurized hush that precedes summer lightning, and this time the weather is financial. Venus, arbiter of value and self-worth, forms a rare trine with Pluto, who prefers to tear out rotten floorboards and replace them with something that doesn't creak. If that sounds dramatic, good, because abundance isn't strolling in with a coupon. It's arriving like a renovation crew with permits and purpose. I want you to imagine the backpack you've been hauling, one pocket labeled scarcity, another old beliefs, a hidden sleeve called doubt getting set on the ground, not with a thud of defeat but with the relief of a marathoner who finally spots the finish line. Psychology tells us we move toward what we consistently picture. Buddhism reminds us that clinging to the wrong story is the root of suffering. Together they suggest a simple experiment for these 3 days: release what never fit and walk forward as if you actually believe your feet can carry you. You will be tempted to sprint, Aries habit, but this window favors precision over speed. Say yes to aligned opportunities, not to every shiny invitation that pings your inbox at 2:11 a.m. If your heart says doorway and your gut says trap, believe the wiser organ. On September 19, the moon's tour through Aquarius jolts your creativity like jumper cables on a sleepy battery, so expect ideas that don't ask permission from your past. Pair that with Jupiter in Gemini amplifying messages, contracts, and conversations, and you get the cosmic equivalent of green lights down a long boulevard. Here is the human piece: wealth is not a morality test, it's a literacy test. Learn its grammar, attention, intention, direction, and your paragraphs of effort will finally read like a life you recognize. Build a container sturdy enough to hold the storm, a simple budget that honors your growth, a calendar block where you plant seeds daily, a promise to pause before purchasing anything marketed as life-changing that ships in 4 to 6 business centuries. Laugh at your impulses, they're fast, not evil, then lead them. If you needed a sign, Aries, consider this: that clear American plain-spoken yes. Set down the rocks, pick up your claim, and step into a forecast that isn't predicting your luck so much as confirming your courage. This is the ignition point. Let's speak plainly for a moment, Aries, because no amount of planetary poetry matters if the psychology underneath is still chained to fear. You and I can chart every trine, sextile, and lunar whisper, but if your inner script says money is corrupt, greedy, or just not for people like me, then abundance will show up on your doorstep looking like a scammer instead of a blessing. Scarcity is rarely your fault, it's usually inherited, passed down like grandma's questionable casserole recipe. Maybe you were raised on the sermon that comfort makes you soft, that survival is the nobler batch, or that wanting more makes you selfish. But psychology, in its crisp American clarity, tells us something stubborn: what you believe, you end up perceiving. Walk into the room expecting rejection, and you'll miss the handshake already extended toward you. Walk in expecting possibility, and suddenly the world looks friendlier than you remembered. Buddhism would add that suffering isn't punishment from the cosmos, it's attachment to the wrong narrative. If you clutch the line "I'll never have enough" like a toddler clutching a broken toy, then no planetary alignment, no thunderstorm of abundance, can pry it from your grip. But the moment you dare to shift the story, when you whisper "I am ready, I am open, I can hold abundance," you've already stepped into a new frequency. It's not magic, it's mental architecture. And Aries, of all the zodiac, you are the sign most capable of rewriting the script overnight. You're the first flame, the spark that burns the draft and scribbles a brand new plot by morning. Now let's address the oversized ram in the room. Some of you listening are the chosen ones. I don't throw that phrase around lightly. You've been tested through years of delays, false starts, and almosts that seemed cruel at the time. You've watched doors swing wide for others while yours stayed stubbornly locked. It wasn't punishment. It was blacksmith work. A sword never shines until it has endured fire, water, and hammer. You, Aries, have been hammered by circumstance, but you never splintered. That's why these 3 days in September carry the weight of destiny. This is not a fortune cookie promise, it's the year of triumph 2025, and you've been forged for this moment. The universe doesn't pour storms of abundance onto those still napping through their lessons. It delivers the downpour to those awake enough to grab a bucket. So when opportunity knocks this week, don't stand there like you're surprised the universe remembered your address. Laugh if you must, but open the door. You've been the fire all along. Now comes the proof. Aries, let's be honest, your biggest challenge with abundance isn't always scarcity, it's your relationship with impulse. You are the Zodiac's original spark, the first to leap, and that fire serves you brilliantly in love, creativity, and leadership. But when it comes to money, sometimes that same fire burns through your wallet faster than a 4th of July firework. You know the scene, the paycheck lands, you promise yourself you'll budget responsibly, and then somehow Amazon decides you're its long-lost heir. One late-night scroll, one add to cart that felt like a survival necessity at 2:07 a.m., and suddenly your so-called abundance storm has been reduced to a passing drizzle. The humor here isn't to shame you, it's to remind you that abundance, like energy, demands a channel. Picture wealth as a golden retriever puppy. Adorable, full of promise, wagging its tail with loyalty, but if you don't train it, it chews your shoes, eats your couch, and bolts out the door. Train it, nurture it, give it structure, and that puppy becomes your most faithful companion. The same goes for money. This season isn't just about receiving more, it's about learning to hold more. And that requires a container. Theory must meet practice, and that's where a roadmap helps. The classic 50/30/20 rule is a good start. 50% of your income goes to essentials, 30% to expansion, and 20% to savings. But let's be real, Aries, you'll rebel against anything that feels like rigid math. So think of it as fuel management instead of accounting. Pour too much gas into expansion and you'll burn out halfway down the road. Hoard too much in savings without joy and you'll feel like a miser in a gilded cage. Balance is your birthright. Your gift is knowing when to accelerate and when to coast, when to pour fuel on the fire and when to let the embers glow steady. Then come the micro decisions. Every yes or no, every subscription, every cup of coffee at $7.25 with extra oat milk, these are not trivial. They're signals. Ask yourself, does this feed my fire, or just distract it? The universe isn't keeping score, but your nervous system is, and each choice is a vote for the future you're building. Add to this the generosity loop. Give from overflow, not guilt. Even 5%, when given with intention, creates circulation. It's a law both spiritual and psychological, energy that moves multiplies. Buddhism reminds us that clinging creates stagnation, generosity creates flow. When you give from overflow, you affirm abundance. When you give from emptiness, you affirm lack. So here's the truth, Aries, money is not just currency, it's energy. Direct it, respect it, and it multiplies. Misuse it, and it becomes that untrained puppy tearing through your living room. Laugh at your impulses, they're part of your charm, but also honor your fire by building a container worthy of the storm heading your way. When people talk about abundance, Aries, they often imagine dollar signs dropping from the heavens like confetti at a championship parade. But the deeper truth is that this storm we're speaking of is not merely about numbers in your bank account, it's about your soul catching up to its own worth. For years, maybe decades, You've been trained to measure your value by output, how many hours you grind, how many sacrifices you stack up like receipts, how often you prove to the world that you're working harder than the next person. The tragedy of that worldview is that it traps you in a cycle where you are never enough unless you are exhausted. Real wealth, the kind that sticks, begins not when the overtime check clears, but the moment you decide you are worthy even in stillness. Buddha reminded us that craving is endless, like pouring water into a cup with no bottom. Clarity, however, brings freedom. Money cannot rescue you, it can only mirror you. It reflects the story you're already telling yourself. If you see yourself as unworthy, wealth slips away like sand through open fingers. If you see yourself as capable, deserving, and ready, money becomes an amplifier, magnifying who you already are. And here's where the humor creeps in. Imagine thinking, if I just get that raise, then I'll finally feel good about myself. That's like saying, if I just buy this treadmill, I'll suddenly be in shape. The treadmill, much like money, doesn't do the running for you. It's a tool, not a savior. Aries, the abundance approaching you isn't riding in like a Hollywood superhero with a cape, it's showing up like an old friend saying, I've been here the whole time, are you finally ready to recognize me? If you've been living as a half version of yourself, dimming your fire to make others comfortable, this is your wake-up call. The abundance isn't coming to save you, it's arriving to meet the authentic you, the you who has always been waiting behind layers of caution. Now let's reflect, because perspective is its own kind of wealth. Think back 5 years. Where were you? What had you convinced yourself was impossible? Perhaps you thought you'd never break free from a job, a relationship, or a pattern that felt cemented into your bones. And yet here you are, stronger, freer, wiser, maybe even laughing at the person you used to be. That in itself is proof that walls crumble, chains break, and the impossible has already been possible for you. Let me share a story that still echoes in my mind. I once knew an Aries who kept saying, I'll start my business when I have enough money. You know how that turned out? Money never arrived, at least not in the way she imagined. But the day she finally launched with nothing more than a laptop, a shaky Wi-Fi connection, and barely enough for a website domain, doors opened that had been locked for years. Clients came, partnerships formed, and abundance rushed in like water finding the lowest ground. Why? Because abundance doesn't reward hesitation, it follows momentum. It doesn't chase the dreamer who sits still, it partners with the one who moves. So ask yourself with honesty, where in your life have you been waiting for neon lights and fireworks when the door has already been cracked open? Perhaps opportunity has been quietly clearing its throat in the corner, waiting for you to notice. The cosmos doesn't need you to wait for permission slips, it needs you to walk through that door. The storm of abundance will not drag you across the threshold. It will meet you there, if you're bold enough to step forward. And Aries, bold is what you were born for. Aries, let's be clear, what's ahead of you between September 18th and 20th is not just a forecast you jot down in your planner and forget about. It's a portal, a threshold, the kind of moment philosophers and poets would call a hinge of fate. The only real question is whether you'll walk through it with the confidence of a ram who knows the mountain was built for its horns, or whether you'll linger on the edge, waiting for someone else to tell you it's safe. This is where psychology meets astrology. Your mind will invent reasons to stall, but your fire knows better. The cosmos doesn't whisper, wait until next year. It says, get up, now. So, write it down. Say it out loud. I was chosen to receive divine wealth. Let those words echo in your chest like a drum beat. And if humor makes it easier, try this declaration instead: I will not blow this storm of abundance on overpriced gadgets or pumpkin spice lattes, no matter how limited edition they claim to be. Because abundance is not just about cash flow, it's about clarity of purpose, the confidence to stand tall, and the freedom to live without apology. This is about stepping into your year of triumph 2025 as if you actually believe the title belongs to you. You are not late, Aries. You are not unworthy. You are standing at the precise edge you were designed for. And here's the twist, this storm of abundance is not here to drown you. It's here to remind you that you are the fire itself. You've carried the ember all along. The storm simply clears the air so your flame can rise without resistance. Pack your bag metaphorically and literally. This isn't chaos arriving, it's an invitation written in cosmic ink. Let me leave you with this declaration, a mantra to anchor your steps. I have stepped out of lack. I choose abundance. I am ready to receive. Say it once, say it twice. Say it until the words stop sounding like wishful thinking and start feeling like muscle memory. Remember, for the chosen ones among you, the universe isn't sending money or success to fix you. It's sending them to recognize the strength and vision you already embody. And now comes the most human piece of wisdom, enjoy it. Abundance is not meant to be hoarded in a vault or guarded like a paranoid dragon. It's meant to be lived, breathed, shared. Treat yourself without guilt. Share with others without fear. Savor the mornings, laugh at your own quirks, let the fire in you fuel joy as much as ambition. That is the ultimate victory, not just building a life, but actually enjoying the one you've built. If this message struck a chord, Aries, don't keep it to yourself. Like this video, share it with a friend who needs that same spark, and subscribe to my channel, Zodiac Talks Tarot, so you never miss the next step in your journey. Because together, we're not just reading the stars, we're rising with them.